Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. What I'm about to share with you over the next 50 minutes is not science fiction, not wild speculation, but a carefully considered analysis of where we're headed as a civilization. We stand at one of the most pivotal moments in human history, a convergence point where technology, society, economics, and governance are all transforming simultaneously at an unprecedented pace. The decisions we make in the next few years will echo through generations to come. Let me start with artificial intelligence, because it's the thread that weaves through almost everything else I'll discuss today. We're not just looking at incremental improvements anymore. Within the next decade, artificial intelligence will fundamentally reshape how we work, how we think, and how we organize society itself. Right now, in December 2025, we're already seeing AI systems that can write, code, analyze, and create at levels that seemed impossible just 3 years ago. But this is merely the opening act. By 2030, we'll see AI systems that don't just assist us but actively collaborate with us in ways that blur the line between tool and partner. Imagine a world where every student has a personalized AI tutor that knows exactly how they learn best, that can adapt in real time to their emotional state, their energy levels, their interests. We're talking about education that's finally, truly individualized. The one-size-fits-all model that's dominated schools for centuries will become a relic of the past. But education is just one sector. In healthcare, AI will be diagnosing diseases from medical imaging with accuracy that exceeds the best human specialists. We're already seeing early versions of this, but by 2028, it will be standard practice. The AI won't replace doctors, but doctors who use AI will replace doctors who don't. That's the pattern we'll see across every profession. The question isn't whether AI will take your job. The question is whether you'll adapt to work alongside it. Now, here's where it gets more complex and frankly more concerning. As AI becomes more capable, we're going to face profound questions about labor markets and economic structures. We're already seeing the early tremors. Creative professionals, writers, artists, designers, they're among the first to feel the impact. Knowledge workers are next. By 2030, we estimate that somewhere between 20 and 40% of current jobs will be either eliminated or fundamentally transformed by AI. That's not a distant future scenario. That's 5 years away. Some of you in this room will experience this directly. The optimistic scenario, and I do believe this is achievable, is that we'll see a massive wave of new job creation in fields we can barely imagine today. Just as the internet created entire industries that didn't exist in 1990, AI will do the same. AI ethicists, prompt engineers, human AI interaction designers, synthetic data specialists, these are already emerging professions. But the transition period will be painful. We need to be honest about that. This brings us directly to the future of work more broadly. The 5-day, 40-hour workweek is an artifact of the Industrial Revolution. It made sense when we needed humans to tend machines on factory floors for set hours. But that model is already breaking down. Remote work, which exploded during the pandemic, has shown us that productivity isn't tied to physical presence in an office. By 2030, I predict that less than 30% of knowledge workers will work in traditional office environments 5 days a week. We're moving toward a model of work that's more fluid, more project-based, more global. A software engineer in Lahore can collaborate seamlessly with a designer in Sao Paulo and a project manager in Stockholm. Geographic boundaries are dissolving. This has enormous implications. It means talent pools are global. It means wage competition is global. It also means opportunity is more widely distributed than ever before. But let's talk about the elephant in the room: economic inequality. The wealth gap between those who own and control AI technologies and those who don't will grow dramatically unless we take deliberate action to prevent it. We're already seeing the early signs. The major AI companies, the big tech firms, they're accumulating unprecedented levels of power and wealth. By 2030, we could see the first trillionaire, and it will almost certainly be someone who's built their fortune on AI or adjacent technologies. This concentration of wealth and power poses serious risks to social stability and democratic governance. We're going to need new economic models. Universal basic income, which seemed radical just a decade ago, is now being seriously discussed in policy circles around the world. Several countries are running pilot programs. By 2030, I predict at least 3 major economies will have implemented some form of UBI or guaranteed minimum income. It's not about socialism versus capitalism anymore. It's about recognizing that when machines can do more of the work, we need new ways to distribute the economic benefits. Let me shift now to climate change, because this is the backdrop against which everything else unfolds. The next 25 years will determine whether we successfully navigate this crisis or slide into catastrophic outcomes. We're currently on track for somewhere between 2.5 and 3 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100. That might not sound like much, but it represents a fundamental disruption of Earth's climate systems. By 2035, we'll see climate impacts that make today's extreme weather events look mild. More intense hurricanes, longer droughts, unprecedented heat waves, massive flooding events. These aren't predictions, they're mathematical certainties based on the physics of greenhouse gases. Coastal cities around the world, Miami, Mumbai, Shanghai, Jakarta, they're already planning for managed retreat from certain areas. By 2040, we'll likely see the first major coastal city partially abandoned due to sea level rise. But here's the crucial point. This is not a story of inevitable doom. Human ingenuity is remarkable. The cost of renewable energy has dropped 90% in the last 15 years. Solar and wind are now the cheapest forms of energy in most of the world. Battery technology is improving rapidly. By 2030, electric vehicles will be cheaper than gas vehicles in virtually every market. The transition to clean energy is happening faster than almost anyone predicted. We're also going to see breakthrough technologies that seemed like fantasy a decade ago. Direct air capture, machines that pull carbon dioxide directly out of the atmosphere, will be deployed at scale by 2035. Advanced nuclear reactors, including fusion power, might finally become commercially viable in the 2030s. We're even looking at solar geoengineering, deliberately reflecting sunlight to cool the planet, though that comes with enormous risks and ethical questions. The adaptation challenge is equally important. We're going to need to completely rethink how we build cities, how we grow food, how we manage water resources. Vertical farms, desalination plants, green infrastructure, floating cities, these aren't science fiction concepts. They're being built right now. By 2040, the way we live in cities will look radically different from today. Space exploration deserves its own discussion because we're entering what I call the second space age. The first space age, from the 1960s through the 1990s, was dominated by governments and driven by Cold War competition. This new era is different. It's commercial, it's international, and it's moving fast. We've already seen remarkable progress. Private companies are launching satellites at a fraction of what it cost NASA. Reusable rockets, once considered impossible, are now routine. The International Space Station has been continuously occupied for over 25 years. But the next decade will make all of that look like baby steps. By 2030, there will be permanent commercial space stations in orbit. Space tourism, still in its infancy today, will be a multi-billion-dollar industry. We're talking about thousands of people who will have been to space. The price will still be high, maybe $100,000 to $500,000, but that's accessible to the upper middle class in wealthy countries, not just billionaires. The moon will see its first permanent base established between 2028 and 2032. This won't be a few astronauts visiting for a few days. This will be a continuously occupied facility with rotating crews, scientific experiments, and the beginnings of resource extraction. There's water ice at the lunar poles. That water can be split into hydrogen and oxygen for rocket fuel. The moon can become a refueling station for deeper space missions. Mars is the big prize, of course. The first crewed mission to Mars will likely launch in the early 2030s. This is incredibly challenging. It's a 6 to 9 month journey each way. The crew will need to spend a year and a half on Mars waiting for the planets to align for the return trip. Everything needs to be perfect because there's no rescue mission if something goes wrong. But it will happen. Humans will walk on Mars before 2040. I'm confident of that. Now, human colonization is different from exploration. A true Mars colony, with permanent residence, self-sustaining life support, local manufacturing, that's probably 2050s at the earliest. But the groundwork will be laid in the next 25 years. Every mission will teach us more about how to live on another world. The first Mars colonists are probably already born. They're children today, and they'll be the pioneers of tomorrow. Quantum computing is another transformational technology that most people still don't fully understand. Classical computers, the ones we use today, process information as bits that are either 0 or 1. Quantum computers use qubits that can be both 0 and 1 simultaneously thanks to quantum superposition. This allows them to solve certain types of problems exponentially faster than classical computers. Right now, quantum computers are still mostly experimental. They're incredibly fragile, they need to be cooled to near absolute zero, and they can only maintain their quantum states for fractions of a second. But progress is accelerating. By 2030, we'll have quantum computers that can solve practical problems classical computers can't touch. The implications for cryptography are profound and frankly terrifying. Most of our current encryption methods rely on the fact that certain mathematical problems are extremely hard for classical computers to solve. Quantum computers could break that encryption easily. This means that all of our secure communications, banking systems, military secrets, everything encrypted with current methods could become vulnerable. We're in a race to develop quantum-resistant encryption before powerful quantum computers become widespread. But quantum computing will also revolutionize drug discovery, materials science, financial modeling, and artificial intelligence itself. Imagine designing new molecules atom by atom, simulating how they'll behave in the human body before ever synthesizing them. We could develop new medicines, new materials, new catalysts for clean energy, all designed with quantum precision. By 2035, quantum computing will likely have contributed to breakthroughs in battery technology, room temperature superconductors, and personalized medicine. Let's talk about geopolitics because technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. The global power structure is shifting in ways that will reshape international relations for the rest of this century. The era of unchallenged American dominance that followed the Cold War is over. We're moving into a multipolar world. China's rise is the most significant geopolitical story of our time. By 2030, China's economy will likely match or exceed America's in nominal terms. China is already the world leader in several key technologies, including 5G, electric vehicles, and solar panels. The competition between the United States and China isn't just economic. It's technological, it's military, and increasingly it's ideological. We're seeing the formation of two competing spheres of influence, two different visions for how the world should be organized. This creates enormous risks. Taiwan remains the most dangerous flashpoint. Any military conflict over Taiwan would be catastrophic, not just for the region but for the entire global economy. The semiconductor industry, which is absolutely critical to modern technology, is heavily concentrated in Taiwan. A war would disrupt supply chains in ways that would make the pandemic supply chain issues look trivial. But there are also other emerging powers we need to watch. India will surpass China in population by 2027 and is positioning itself as a major technological and economic power. India's trajectory over the next 25 years will be crucial. Will it align more closely with the West, with China, or chart its own independent path? The answer will reshape Asian geopolitics. Africa is the continent with the youngest population and the fastest growth rate. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on Earth will be African. The development trajectory of Africa will be one of the most important stories of this century. If African nations can leapfrog older technologies and build modern infrastructure, if they can harness their demographic dividend, Africa could become an economic powerhouse. But if they're held back by conflict, corruption, and climate impacts, it could be a humanitarian catastrophe. Democracy itself is under pressure around the world. We've seen democratic backsliding in countries that seemed to be consolidating democratic norms just a decade ago. The rise of populism, the spread of misinformation through social media, the erosion of trust in institutions, these are all stressing democratic systems. By 2030, we'll have a clearer picture of whether liberal democracy can adapt to the challenges of the 21st century or whether we'll see more countries sliding into various forms of authoritarianism. The outcome isn't predetermined. It depends on whether democracies can deliver results for their citizens, whether they can address economic inequality, whether they can restore trust in institutions, and whether they can figure out how to govern in the age of social media and AI-generated misinformation. Speaking of misinformation, this is one of the most serious challenges we face. AI-generated deepfakes are already convincing enough to fool most people. By 2028, we'll have video and audio that's completely indistinguishable from reality. Imagine a video of a world leader declaring war, or a CEO announcing bankruptcy, or a celebrity endorsing a scam. How do we maintain shared reality when seeing is no longer believing? We're going to need new verification systems, digital signatures, blockchain-based authenticity certificates, media literacy education. But it's going to be an arms race. As detection methods improve, so will the deepfakes. This has profound implications for journalism, for legal proceedings, for political campaigns, for personal privacy. We'll need new legal frameworks, new social norms, and new technologies to navigate this. Medical breakthroughs in the next decade will be extraordinary. CRISPR and other gene editing technologies are moving from research labs into clinical applications. We've already seen the first treatments for sickle cell disease using gene editing. By 2030, we'll have gene therapies for dozens of genetic conditions. We're talking about curing diseases that have plagued humanity for millennia. Personalized medicine will become the standard of care. Your genome will be sequenced as routinely as your blood pressure is measured today. Treatment plans will be tailored to your specific genetic makeup, your microbiome, your lifestyle. We'll predict your risk for various diseases decades before symptoms appear and intervene preventatively. Cancer treatment is being revolutionized by immunotherapy and targeted therapies. We're teaching the immune system to recognize and attack cancer cells. We're developing drugs that target specific mutations in tumors. By 2035, many cancers that are currently death sentences will become manageable chronic conditions, like diabetes or high blood pressure today. Aging itself is being reconceptualized not as an inevitable process but as something we might be able to slow or even partially reverse. Senolytics, drugs that clear out damaged senescent cells, are showing promise in animal studies and early human trials. By 2040, we might have treatments that extend healthy lifespan by a decade or more. This raises enormous ethical, social, and economic questions. If people are living and working healthy until 90 or 100, how do we fund retirement? How do generational transitions work? Who gets access to life extension therapies? We also need to talk about the next pandemic, because it's not a question of if but when. We've learned hard lessons from recent experience. We know that early detection is crucial. We know that global cooperation is essential. We know that we need better surge capacity in our healthcare systems. By 2030, we'll likely have much better surveillance systems using AI to detect unusual disease patterns in real time. We'll have better rapid response protocols. We might have universal vaccine platforms that can be quickly adapted to new pathogens. But we'll also face new challenges. Climate change is pushing humans into closer contact with wildlife, increasing the risk of zoonotic disease spillovers. Global travel means that a virus can spread worldwide in days. Engineered pathogens, whether accidentally released or deliberately weaponized, are a growing concern. The most likely timeline for the next major pandemic is sometime in the 2030s. It might be a novel influenza strain, a coronavirus, or something we haven't encountered before. Our response will be much better than it was in 2020, but it will still test our social cohesion, our economic resilience, and our global cooperation. Let me talk about some specific industries that will be transformed. The automotive industry is already in the midst of the biggest disruption since the invention of the car itself. By 2030, over half of new vehicles sold will be electric. By 2035, several major countries will ban the sale of new internal combustion engine vehicles. This isn't just about the cars themselves. This is a complete transformation of the supply chain, the service industry, the fueling infrastructure. Autonomous vehicles are coming, though more slowly than the hype suggested a few years ago. Full self-driving in all conditions is extraordinarily difficult. But by 2030, we'll have autonomous ride-sharing services operating in many cities. By 2035, autonomous trucks will be handling significant portions of highway freight. This will displace millions of professional drivers, which is why we need to be thinking now about retraining programs and social safety nets. The energy industry is in the middle of a century-scale transformation. Fossil fuels still dominate today, but their decline is now inevitable. By 2030, renewable energy will be the cheapest option almost everywhere. By 2040, renewables will likely provide the majority of global electricity. The oil and gas industry will still exist, but it will be smaller and more focused on materials and chemicals rather than energy. The financial industry is being disrupted by fintech, cryptocurrency, and decentralized finance. Traditional banks are losing their monopoly on financial services. By 2030, digital currencies, including central bank digital currencies, will be widespread. We might see significant portions of global trade settling in digital currencies rather than dollars or euros. This has huge implications for monetary policy, for financial stability, and for global power dynamics. Cryptocurrency itself has been volatile and controversial. Bitcoin and other early cryptocurrencies have been more successful as speculative assets than as functional currencies. But the underlying blockchain technology is finding applications in supply chain management, digital identity, and smart contracts. By 2030, blockchain will be embedded in systems you use every day, even if you don't realize it. Retail is continuing its shift online, but physical stores aren't disappearing. They're being reimagined as experiential spaces. By 2030, most routine purchases will be online, with same-day delivery standard in urban areas. Physical stores will focus on experiences, on trying products, on community gathering. We'll see more hybrid models, where you browse online but pick up or return in person. The media and entertainment industry is fragmenting. The model of everyone watching the same few TV channels or reading the same few newspapers is long gone. By 2030, content will be even more personalized, more interactive, more immersive. Virtual reality and augmented reality will be mainstream entertainment platforms. We might have AI-generated content that's personalized to your preferences, stories that adapt in real time based on your reactions. This fragmentation has a dark side. When everyone consumes different media, when everyone lives in their own information bubble, it becomes harder to maintain shared understanding and social cohesion. This is one of the fundamental challenges we'll need to address in the coming decades. Education, as I mentioned earlier, is being transformed by AI and digital technology. But there's also a counter-trend, a recognition that human connection and social-emotional learning are crucial. By 2030, I predict we'll see a hybrid model. Core knowledge delivery and skill practice will be heavily automated and personalized. But collaborative projects, mentorship, and social learning will be emphasized in ways they weren't before. The university system is under pressure. When you can learn almost anything online for free or cheap, what's the value of a $200,000 degree? Universities will increasingly focus on credentialing, on providing structured learning experiences, on facilitating networking and collaboration. We'll also see more alternative credentials, micro-credentials, boot camps, and apprenticeships recognized by employers. Let me bring this toward a conclusion by talking about what all of this means for us as individuals and as a society. We're living through a period of exponential change. The pace of technological advancement is accelerating. The changes we'll see in the next 25 years will be more dramatic than the changes of the last 50 years. This creates enormous opportunities but also enormous challenges. For young people today, adaptability will be the most important skill. The jobs you'll have in 2040 might not exist yet. The skills that matter most will be creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and the ability to learn continuously. Technical skills will still be important, but they'll need to be regularly updated. For society, we need to have serious conversations about what kind of future we want. Technology gives us powerful tools, but tools can be used for good or ill. AI can democratize access to knowledge and capability, or it can concentrate power in the hands of a few. Genetic engineering can cure diseases, or it can create new forms of inequality. Social media can connect us, or it can divide us. The decisions we make in the next few years about how to govern these technologies, how to distribute their benefits, how to mitigate their risks, these decisions will shape the trajectory of human civilization for generations. We can't afford to be passive. We can't just let technology companies and market forces determine our future. We need active, informed, democratic engagement with these questions. I'm fundamentally optimistic about our future, but it's a conditional optimism. We have the tools to solve our biggest challenges: climate change, poverty, disease, conflict. We have more knowledge, more capability, more resources than any previous generation. But having the tools doesn't guarantee we'll use them wisely. That requires wisdom, courage, cooperation, and a shared commitment to building a future that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. The next 25 years will test us in ways we can barely imagine. But I believe in human resilience, human creativity, and human decency. If we can stay focused on our common humanity, if we can resist the forces that would divide us, if we can think long-term rather than just reacting to immediate crises, then the future can be extraordinary. We stand at a threshold. The choices we make, the actions we take, they matter more now than perhaps at any previous moment in history. The future is not predetermined. It's something we create together through millions of individual decisions and collective actions. So let's create a future we can be proud of, a future our children and grandchildren will thank us for. Thank you for your time and attention. The conversation about our future doesn't end here. It's just beginning. And every one of you has a role to play in shaping what comes next.